So there is one issue today that I thought I'd address. And I may not address it in great detail, so I want to come back to this issue. I started and often at various fora and here at my press conferences, partially talking about the issue. But in light of what happened recently, when President Ali visited Brooklyn and engaged with our people who live in Brooklyn and visited some business entities there, we had this vile but not unpredictable call by Burke and Benchcop and the likes of them to boycott these premises. And most people will think that this may be an outlier event, that it's unusual. But there's nothing unusual about what they did. It's part of a pattern, and it's part of the PNC's core philosophy. They were just the latest manifestation, or these calls were just the latest manifestation of that philosophy. And it goes back to what I pointed out several times here at these press conferences. I've pointed out that there is a core difference between the People's Progressive Party and the PNC and the AFC, but more so the PNC. That because of the lack of achievements of the PNC, they were in office for 28 years with very little to show at the end of the period. In fact, we were a poor, bankrupt country by the time they left. So with very little to show achievement-wise, they tend to campaign on a philosophy of fear. So fear, and they have to instill fear in the people who vote for them against the others. So the others are coming to get you. They can't say what they have done positively. We too have campaigned with some fear element added to it, because we campaign on the fear of the PNC to rig elections, because that's grounded in a historic reality. They have done this consistently in the 28 years they were in office and tried that again. So the fear of that and discrimination against people too. But most of our campaigns, if you look at them, are entirely positive. They say what we have done for the country. We have restored a bankrupt economy to one of the most vibrant economies in the world, even before oil. We've moved healthcare and advanced healthcare. Per capita income has grown. Businesses have grown in Guyana. Jobs, more people have jobs. We've campaigned more on housing, scholarships, education, healthcare delivery, because we can point to those things. So that's the nature of our campaign, not entirely based on fear. So many people know we accuse APNU of racism. And they have managed in the past to do the converse, to accuse the PPP of racism. And when Chedi Jagan tried to broaden the membership of this party, even after all the troubles in the 60s, people stayed away from us because their campaign of racism and fear resonated with people in their communities. Fear of the other, fear of the PPP, fear that we will discriminate against Afro-Guyanese. So it kept a large number of people away from us because of these fears. It served their purpose. And so that tool, they're unwilling to relinquish this tool because it worked well for them in the past. Now the potency of this tool, which is fear, is being eroded now. It's being eroded significantly. They don't get the same sort of resonance. And we now have to fight it. We've committed ourselves to fighting, exposing it. So when we say that if you're Indo-Guyanese, you don't have a place in the PNC, it is born out of experience. Even now, you hear complaints from Ubraj and all of the others who are in there that they don't have a place in the PNC. If you're Amerindians, you know your experience is also the experience that they voiced in Parliament about greedy Amerindian people, etc. You have no place there in the bosoms of the PNC. If you're any other race, even your people of mixed heritage, you don't have a place in APNU. So people may be tempted to say, if I'm Afro-Guyanese, then this is my party because it caters for my interests, it represents my cause. But that's false too. If you're Afro-Guyanese, you have no place in the PNC. And why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Because that's what I want to get to today. Because many people may be seduced into believing, well, okay, I'm Afro-Guyanese. If they're against everyone else, they must be for me. If they're against Indo-Guyanese and Amerindians and mixed people, they must be for me. And it's an uncomfortable subject that people don't like to talk about often. But they're not really in favor of Afro-Guyanese. And why am I saying this? So APNU wants to create a victim mentality among Afro-Guyanese. You're discriminated against. Just a week ago, Ogunseyi said Afro-Guyanese own, falsely, less than 10% of Guyana, and they're nearly 50% of the population. A false figure, but they keep perpetrating it. They say it. So, do not apply for scholarships. We heard that from several APNU leaders. You're never going to get it from this government. Those who defied and applied, they got the scholarships. Tens of thousands of people, in fact, maybe 14,000 Afro-Guyanese who are studying, more than any time under the PNC in the whole history. But still, oh, you're discriminated against. Don't apply for house lots, you're not going to get it. But more Afro-Guyanese have got house lots under the PPP than they would ever give under the APNU. But you must not apply. You must not apply for the part-time jobs because you're not going to get it. The people in Linden were told that. Never mind, now you have 1,200 mainly Afro-Guyanese working in Linden on the part-time jobs that they never provided. You must not apply for the cash grant because you will not get it. The experience is very different. And why do they want that? They don't want people to grow. They don't want Afro-Guyanese to get wealthier. So we'd keep them not owning anything. We made it clear we want our people, those who support the PPP, and we unabashedly say this. You come to us, we'll push you to get positive. We want you to have jobs, we want you to own your own homes, we want you to grow wealthier, because we believe that wealthier people will still support the PPP. I think they believe if Afro-Guyanese are not dependent on them, then they will so-called stray from them ethnically. And that is precisely why they don't want people to own things, to get a good job. So keep them in this victim's mentality. And look at every one of them who says this. Oh, so Nigel Hughes, Afro-Guyanese not getting, his thing is they couldn't get an oil block, only Indian people getting oil blocks. He didn't say anything when we have a young, progressive group of young Guyanese women, Afro-Guyanese, who got 2 of the blocks. But that's to be ignored. Now, wouldn't say anything about that, but trying to create this victim's mentality. APNU is the same thing. They got nearly 500 million from the government. Marcus exposed what's going on at APNU. They don't helping Afro-Guyanese, but they are saying the government is practicing, collecting nearly 500 million to say the government is practicing apartheid. But they got the money to help people to grow out of it, empower them. So they wouldn't not do that because they want to keep Afro-Guyanese in that state. It is this constant thing. It started off from the early days of APNU with state control. You must go to them for everything. And if you remain poor, then you can always get people to vote for you because you feel a victim of the PPP. So what bothers them most? Why you think they run into South Georgetown when we're doing roads there? They don't want the roads done, because then if the roads are done, people would say, hold on a minute, roads are being done here too. It's not discrimination. We can have roads to walk on too. Why you think that local government elections, they said, Independence Boulevard, we're building that to sell out people land. Not because we want to help people there and to grow that part of the city, but because we want to take away their land and sell it out. This is to keep people in that mindset. So what happened in Brooklyn now, it is destroying that mindset, because Rickford Burke and people like Benchcop, what they've been doing, they've been creating this victimhood mentality, and people like Burke would extort people. He makes his money from arguing. He's struggling for the rights of Afro-Guyanese. He doesn't care one bit about Afro-Guyanese rights. He's been there 30 years, never did anything for people here. But the president shattered a myth that people in Brooklyn don't want to talk to the government. He shattered a myth, and that's why they reacted. So what do they do now? For Afro-Guyanese who dare to want to get wealthy or to own a own home or choose the PPP or any other force or speak out for their own rights, who want to come out of this victimhood mentality, they're subjected to vilification. The luncheons and the others, you remember them all the time. They were slaves, house slaves, stooges, etc. Up to now, they use those names for people because people dare to say, I want to grow out of this victimhood mentality. I want to be part of Guyana and working with all my people, progress personally. Because then you can't fool them that they're victims anymore. They vilify, they shame people, and now they boycott. They boycott your business because you dare to have a civilized conversation with the president of Guyana. Boycott. These are the tools that they use all the time because they want to keep this mentality there. And look at every single one of them. Ogunse, Nigel Hughes, and all of the others, the whole entire APNU. It's always about victimhood. It's something, or you're being discriminated against. So this is, IPADG does this thing. You remember how, what's her name, Ferguson went to Pleasance and a family there in the elections, local government elections, that said, we are supporting the PPP. She went down there and said, no, you can't do this, etc. Because the family dared to make progress. People who come to us, whether they're the traditional supporters, we're always positive. We want them to grow. We believe if they're wealthier and we help them to get wealthier or get a scholarship or a job, they would support us. So we don't have a fear for them to grow out of poverty. They have a fear of people growing out of victimhood because then they can't use racism, which is their primary tool of mobilizing. And that is their mortal fear. And that is why they react this violently to all that happened recently. So it's not isolated. It's not isolated. So do they really represent Afro-Guyanese? Although they say that, oh, we are supporting Afro-Guyanese. They don't. They really want to use Afro-Guyanese for political power. And look, when they had the political power, how they used it. So in Linden, who got the land? Who got the land in Linden? It's just a few people, not ordinary Afro-Guyanese. If you're concerned about the skewing of wealth in favor of other races, how is it that for 33 years of our independent Guyana, 58 years of independent Guyana, when you had the control over state power, you were running the government, how can you ensure that Afro-Guyanese grew? How could you not? Because they pauperize Afro-Guyanese. They pauperize Afro-Guyanese by making sure they were mainly in the public sector. If you look at 1990 and 1992, the average salary in the public sector was $25 US by pauperizing a large amount of Afro-Guyanese when they were in office. They didn't help much in the period in 2015 too. So you had 33 years of control over the executive and 36 years of control over the parliament, basically, because from 2012 to 2015, they had a one-seat majority. 36 years of our 58 years, they had control over the parliament. How did they use this in favor of Afro-Guyanese? The entire country, including the lives of many Afro-Guyanese, was destroyed. And so we need to go beyond, for those who may be tempted to believe, oh, if they hate everyone else, all the other races, they may love us. It's not so. We want to keep people in bondage. So when Ogunse says, we want to give a few handouts to the organizations to keep them under control and calling people disparaging names directly, it's not the handout, it's the scholarship too. We are trying to change people's lives, all of our people. Every single race, every single religion, because we see them not just as Guyanese, but potential supporters of the PPP. We want them to get wealthier, to get a job. So then we would argue, we're in government when you got this, so vote for the PPP. That's what we are campaigning on, trying to grow people's lives, not keep them down, negative all the time. So it is, I'm going to say, it's not that, it's the scholarships, it's the jobs, it's the land that were allocated. Just look at the last 4 years and you will see it's not handouts to Afro-Guyanese. It's substantive set of issues that will transform their lives. When we return the grant to the children, we did it for all of our children. We're doubling old age pension for all of our people, including Afro-Guyanese and everyone else. But We're also doing it for the sugar workers and the Amerindians because we believe in everyone moving forward. So this is an important issue, important issue that I will come back to, because sometimes people might be tempted to believe, oh, I'm Afro-Guyanese, therefore these guys are for me. If they're against everyone else, they have to be for me. But they're not really, because they want to keep you in that state. And that is what they capitalize on. People like Burke and the bench cop, they make money, I believe, on the side. Now, if people feel there is no cause to fight for, why would they give them any money, donations? And Burke is a criminal. He extorts everyone. I think he's worried more about the donations he will not get anymore in these places. So that's why you see such kinds of reactions. And it is something, I don't have enough time to explore it, and it is something we need to talk a bit more about. And put the same people under scrutiny, because they were in office. Hines, he now suddenly has all of these things and suggestions. But when they had the cushy jobs in the 5 years, you think they cared about any Afro-Guyanese getting land? You think they cared about anything else? They were looking after themselves. You think Nigel Hughes cared anything? Cathy Hughes was busy getting contract in her ministry for herself, for her own company. You think they cared any? Where was this manifestation of the love for Afro-Guyanese? It was non-existent, and we need to expose this. The iPad G2 on the APNU. Where was this love? They got lots of money for Afro-Guyanese. So I think we need to really do this. And it's a conversation this country has to have, because APNU has too long divided our people along that line, as though they are the champions of Afro-Guyanese. It's not so. It's not so. In fact, they're the worst thing that could happen to Afro-Guyanese, because they want to preach victimhood everywhere they go. You just listen to their speeches. Nothing positive to young kids. Not about get a scholarship, go and study, get a job, go apply for the house lot, get something, start a business, take the grant from the government. Nothing about that. Oh, don't worry, don't shake Ali's hand. Don't shake Ali's hand. Don't eat the roti that Ali cooked. That kind of thing. That is it, all the time. The VP is a demon, demonic party. Jagdeo is Satan. That's all they come about. Everything is about that. And you don't, getting issues. When are we going to talk about changing the lives for all of our people? And that's why this party is growing. That's why this party is going. And we have a Congress, and we have had over an indication that over 3,000 people have delegates and observers may come to this Congress. That's those who are registered now, over 3,000 delegates and observers. That's about 3 times the size of any previous Congress, and they're coming from Region 10, from the hinterland areas, from Berbice, from Essequibo, every region in the country, in large numbers. And justifying the strength of our party, its multi-ethnic nature, but also it's not even a demonstration, because we could have got more people to join the party, because people see where we're going, and we're working for all of our people. So we will come back to this conversation again. But the recent events, the vile thing about boycotting people in Brooklyn, etc., it's not unusual, it's not different, and it's part of their arsenal. Boycott is part of their arsenal to intimidate people who may want to engage with us, to vilify them, to shame them. So they're would be scared in their communities to come out to meetings, because next thing they have these very, very vile people like the bench cops and the Burks, etc., and the Duncans criticizing people. That is their biggest fear.